Hello, one and all. My name is Ryan Bruce. My friends call me Fluff. And today on Riffs, Beards, and Gear, we're going to get a little nerdy and talk about sound treatment and my new sound panels that I put in. So every studio needs proper sound treatment because without it, even the best gear doesn't sound great, or at least you are not getting an accurate representation of how any given thing sounds, whether that is, your quad cortex coming through your monitors, the mix you are working on, even your YouTube video, etc., etc. It's a very deep rabbit hole, but I thought I would touch on sound treatment, Vicoustic sound treatment, and why I decided to go with Vicoustic when I had to completely rebuild my home studio after a fire. And before we go any further, this video is brought to you by the fine folks over at Sweetwater and Vicoustic. Sweetwater has all of the products that you need to treat your room, including the entire selection of Vicoustic sound panels. If you need anything treated, whether that is a small studio, a big, large professional studio, live venue, etc., go to sweetwater.com. All thoughts and opinions are still mine. So first, let's start with what happened. I had a small studio fire and I was in the middle of shooting the playthrough for the Marshall Modified series. It's right here. And I was in the middle of shooting the playthrough for that video when I had a small garbage can fire. And the fire was nominally bad. It didn't gut anything and it wasn't catastrophic or anything like that. However, the smoke did more damage than the actual fire, and the fire extinguisher powder did even more damage than the smoke from the fire. And basically what that meant is everything had to be gutted in here, and all the gear had to be taken to either get cleaned or thrown away, and that was evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And I lost a lot of headphones and, anything that had foam ear cups or anything like that, gone. Cables, gone. All sorts of stuff. That's not important, but that did mean I had to basically start over and decide how I was going to treat my room. So let's talk about my own personal usage history with Vicoustic sound panels and Vicoustic products. I got my first sound treatment with Vicoustic panels back in, that had to have been 2014 at my former house and my former home studio. And that was such an epiphany. That was such a monumental leap forward in hearing the things I needed to hear and hearing things accurately. And also, they sound great. And really, if they're doing their job, you don't really hear them. You just hear the things that you want to hear. However, Vicoustic are an interesting blend of visual beauty and design, but also functionality, which I think if you look around to other very functional, great sound treatment products, a lot of them aren't that great to look at, which, if you're buying sound treatment for the looks, you're buying it for the wrong reasons. However, there's no reason why sound treatment can't also look good, and that's kind of the vibe that Vicoustic puts out. Now let's talk about the actual process and the steps you need to take should you decide to get Vicoustic sound treatment. Now, I, like anybody else, went to Vicoustic's website, and basically what they need to know is they need to know very, very detailed measurements of your room. And they need to know exact locations of things like ceiling lamps and water sprinklers and light switches, doors, things like that. Now, interestingly enough, what I discovered was my original measurements that I gave them when I first moved into this house in late 2017 or early 2018 were off. They were like way off because I was just using a measuring tape and I was kind of haphazardly going, it's this long. And it turns out I was like 15 cubic feet off. And my original measurements had the room much, much shorter than it actually is, which explains kind of the weirdness and how it sounded originally, because the calculations were wrong because of me. So if you were to do this yourself, you need to be very, very accurate in your measurements. And the best tool that you can possibly use for this is a laser distance finding tool, which is about $70. And basically, you have the tool and it's a laser, and wherever you put it, it will tell you the distance from the back of the body to the next surface. So you can measure lengths of walls, heights of ceilings, etc., extremely accurately. This was a game changer for me. So the reason why Vicoustic needs all these measurements is because they create your room in basically a virtual reality, a virtual space, so they can then calculate where things like standing waves are and resonances and things like that. They reconstruct your room virtually and then virtually analyze the problem spots without actually coming to your house. I think that's so cool. Now, this process takes a few weeks to get back, but what you do get back is an acoustic treatment proposal document. And this document basically shows you the top, side, and bottom views of your virtual room. And they basically break down what products you need to properly deaden and treat your room, right? So they'll say, you know, put these model of panels here, put these waveguides here, put these diffusers up here on the ceiling, etc., and they give you a parts build, and then it's up to you to then go to wherever you buy acoustic treatment and Vicoustic treatment, in my case, Sweetwater, and then you order the things that you need, and then you have your document, and you're good to go. But you can take this one step further. Now, upon request, there's actually a second document that you can get, and it's called an implementation document. I never knew this existed, and I didn't necessarily need it before. However, this document is going to give you exact dimensions and measurements based off of edges of walls and things like that, of where to properly place the treatment in your room. I found this very, very helpful, but also previously, I just basically used the pictures and kind of haphazardly kind of just placed them as best as I could tell. But this is a much more exact method to place them. If you do get Vicoustic treatment in your room, definitely request this document. Well worth it. So now let's talk about panel installation. Now, installation for Vicoustic panels are achieved through their proprietary special adhesive, which is a very, very fast drying, rapidly fast drying glue, basically caulking. And you basically put some on the back, you hold it against the wall for 5 to 10 seconds, and you're good to go. As weird as that feels, because really, especially at the ceiling stuff, you do it, you hold it up, and then you think like, is this okay to move? And you just let go, and that's basically it. I found a laser level very, very useful for me in placing the panels uniformly and evenly across the entire room. So what I would do is I would take a laser level, set it to where I needed it, and then I would take painter's tape to mark that line all the way down the wall, so that I could then move the tripod out of the way and then place the panels accordingly. All right, if that makes sense. So for me, this process went really, really fast. I was able to do this entire room in one day. It took me maybe 4 hours to do everything, and I was taking my sweet time as well. But basically you glue the backs of the panels, push against the wall, and move on to the next one. It's kind of like Legos, but much more expensive. Now, a pro tip here, do not use a hand caulking gun. Spring for a cordless caulking gun, Ryobi caulking, a battery powered one. I didn't know these things existed at all. This thing saved my wrist and my hands, because let me tell you, after an hour of squeezing as hard as you can to get the glue and adhesive onto the backs of panels, you will be hurting. You can't grab your phone, you can't grab anything to drink. You are completely destroyed. Your muscles and your arm muscles are just shot. Get the battery powered caulking gun, all right? Just trust me on this one. Now, once I was done installing the panels, the carpet was installed and it was time to set up. And that was the best part about this whole process. It's done in a day and it instantly sounds so good in here. It's I don't even know how to describe it. It sounds so even and level, and it does sound different than what it used to be, which has taken some adjustment for me. It's been about 2 weeks now since I installed everything and got the studio desk wired up, and for me, this has been an amazing, crazy, horrible, awesome adventure, and the ability to reset and redo the sound treatment in here like I always wanted to has been incredible. And Vicoustic panels look great on camera because I do a lot of filming, but also they sound good when it's time to pull up the newest mix that I need to turn in to a band, as an example. And that's about it. All said and told, these panels in here in this room total about $6,000, which is so much money, so much money. Sound treatment is a lot like in-ear monitors, right? There's the floor for the cost. The entry is very, very high because you can't cheap out on sound panels, really. I don't know anything about building them, but also I was already used to the aesthetic and the visual appearance of the Vicoustic products as it was. I mean, that's all I've had on this channel for the last decade, and I wanted to stick with the same thing and what I had. So Vicoustic was an obvious choice. I love the panels. I love how this room sounds. It has been an incredible journey. Shout out to Vicoustic and Sweetwater for sponsoring this video once again. And with that, you've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.